Welcome to Healing the Spirit, a space where we awaken our creativity, deepen our connections, and remember who we are through the lens of astrology, archetypes, and art making. I'm your host, Jonathan Coe. Hello everyone, it has been a while since I shared a conversation, and I am super excited to share this beautiful conversation, beautiful transmission that I co-created with my friend, with my colleague, Verena Borell. And it's going to be on the topic of Mercury and the outer planets. So if you are learning astrology especially, I feel like you're going to really love this episode because it's so juicy. It is very, very, it's just full of wisdom and insights. And yeah, I can't wait for you to listen to it. So let me introduce Verena by reading her bio. Verena Borell lives and works as an evolutionary astrologer, writer, creatrix, and translator for cosmic energies in Munich, but will move to Austria this summer. She offers one-on-one evolutionary astrology sessions in German and English language and supports clients with cosmic guidance over several months on their soul's journey. To expand and deepen the wisdom school of evolutionary astrology, Verena started last summer to read the Akashic records for herself and her clients too. Blessed with gifted and wise teachers such as Sabrina Monarch and Ari Moshe Wolf, Verena considers herself as an eternal student. Born with a strong Gemini and Sagittarius axis and a fully loaded 12th house, Verena has the deep desire to share the light, her learnings, and experiences with other souls. She teaches her Living Astrology intensive program in German language, gives astrology workshops, and shares her astrological knowledge, intuitive insights, and cosmic experiences on her Instagram channel at Verena Borell, via her Mercury Messages newsletter, and her Mercury Dreams podcast in German language. Verena considers astrology as a loving and living experience. For her, astrology and the planets are neither above nor detached from life, but rather a part of an enchanted, wise, and meaningful universe which includes nature, Earth, the cosmos, humans, animals, and also entities from other dimensions and extraterrestrial realms. Verena considers evolutionary astrology and the Akashic records as powerful systems and magical tools to navigate our soul's experience in this incarnation here on Earth School and to connect with a higher truth, love, and source. Because of that, rituals, meditation, and prayers to the planets, goddesses, and gods are part of her astrological practice, soul's path, and heart work. So, Verena is one of the practitioners that I know who is so deeply rooted and is constantly evolving and growing within the language, the philosophy, the framework of evolutionary astrology. For those of you who are not familiar with this particular lineage of astrology, we're going to talk about it a little bit more in the episode, but both Verena and I studied with Sabrina Monarch, who is trained in the Jeffrey Wolf Green lineage of evolutionary astrology. And you can definitely find YouTube videos of Jeffrey Wolf Green talking about evolutionary astrology on YouTube, which is very inspiring. So highly recommend that if you've never listened to Jeffrey Wolf Green talking about Pluto, talking about evolutionary astrology in general. It's really quite mind-blowing. I find that Verena's devotion to this practice is so inspiring, and I can really see how this language and this practice works its medicine in her life, as well as her bringing something new and something fresh to the table and really enriching this body of knowledge and wisdom tradition, really. Verena and I are in regular conversations because we are part of the same community, and we also share readings with each other on an ongoing basis. And I'm really excited to kind of let you in on this conversation because I feel like there's a powerful flow and this exchange that Verena and I have with each other that really comes across in this particular conversation. We essentially decided on the topic of what we're going to be talking about literally the morning of the podcast recording. And I think that the freshness of our relationship to this emergent idea of Mercury and the outer planets is really on display here. And I also have created the music for Verena's podcast, Mercury Dreams, which is mostly in German language. Although, who knows, maybe Verena will be inspired to share some transmissions in English. So in this conversation, we talked a lot about how Verena came into astrology around the same time that she was also deepening her relationship with English, as well as the challenges kind of inherent in sharing ideas, sharing thoughts in language that's not your first language, which is also my experience. We spoke about Verena's relationship with evolutionary astrology, how she found it, how evolutionary astrology has played such a major role in her transformation in her own life. We spoke about the holistic interplay between specifically Mercury and the outer planets as seen through the lens of evolutionary astrology as well as Verena's own practice. There was this idea that Verena spoke about with regards to Uranus that I found to be very resonant and also very surprising, that I believe she learned from one of her teachers, Ari Moshe Wolf, so definitely stay tuned for that. We also spoke about this idea of channeling, and we had a discussion about whether channeling is more Neptunian or Uranian. And although this conversation was recorded some time ago, I believe it was in June, I really only had a chance to edit this conversation recently. And I am releasing this podcast on the full moon in Capricorn in 2022 during Cancer season. And so I think this is kind of turning out to be an incredible synchronicity because in the sky right now, Mercury is currently with the Sun in Cancer in very close conjunction, and then Pluto is in very close conjunction to the Moon in Capricorn, right, opposite each other. And then the two outer planets that are remaining, Uranus and Neptune, are kind of in a nice sextile with both of those planets. So Uranus is currently in Taurus, which makes a really nice sextile to Mercury, and then Neptune is in Pisces, sextiling Pluto. And so if you look at them, they're all kind of in a nice little half, flower petal configuration of sextiling each other. And sextile in astrology is the 60-degree angle, right? So it's kind of a nice collaborative, collegial kind of energy that's inherent in them. In traditional astrology, sextiles are associated with the planet Venus, which rules beauty, which rules art, friendship, collaboration, pleasure. So it just feels so exciting that Mercury and the outer planets are in this configuration at the time when this conversation is released, and we have a nice little illumination that we're receiving from the luminaries. So I think that this conversation really is very evergreen. Like you can listen to this anytime really and kind of tap into this energy of collaboration that Mercury and the outer planets can be weaving with each other. And I just can't wait for you to listen to it. And I would be really curious to hear what you think if you want to share that with us. All right, so without further ado, let me get into this conversation with Verena Borell on Mercury and the outer planets. Enjoy! Welcome to the podcast, Verena. Thank you for being here.
I'm so deeply honored that I'm allowed to be on your podcast. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, the honor is all mine. I have really enjoyed the past couple years studying together with you. You are someone whom I learn a lot from because you're just so brilliant. And there's this way in which in spaces you are so generous, Verena, and you're so fearless, and you bring a little bit of that in us as well. So I want to thank you, and I want to let you know how much you have taught me about astrology and about what it means to be someone who is living this mercurial life, because you are a Gemini rising, and as a Virgo rising, we are people whose charts are ruled by Mercury. And so I'm so excited for us to be talking about Mercury today, and I'm sure there's a lot of insights that will come through.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And I just can give that back. I have learned so much about astrology and about life from you. And I think, I have the feeling every time when we share spaces together, we learn so much from each other. And I'm pretty sure that we not only learn together in this life, but maybe we're students together in other lives and in other spheres, and doing this Mercury thing together, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I really, really feel that. Yes. So I like to begin my conversations with talking about the present moment. So I'm curious to hear, who do you feel, sense, or know yourself to be in the present moment in this particular chapter in your life?
That was the one question that I was really afraid of. Because, I thought about that, and I think we are always in a state of becoming. So we are always within our soul's evolution. And I actually cannot remember a time in this life, or maybe in other lives too, where my life was kind of calm. And there was always so much change in my life. And I think that at the moment it's intense, I would say. So I had a big life change in 2019. And I would say that my spirit guides are telling me that I'm just at the beginning of what is possible for me in this incarnation. And I just started to explore why I'm here and my way. So I'm still at the beginning. It does not feel like that, but I'm trusting that. And at the moment, when we are having this conversation, we are within eclipse season with the Taurus, Scorpio, lunar nodes. And so at the moment, when you ask me of the present time, it's a time of shedding skins. Old karmic wounds are coming to the surface. There's so much cleansing, purging, releasing. But it's intense, but it feels very important to become more and more free and liberate myself. And I think because we are talking about Mercury, at the moment, I think that I am in a transition phase too, on all levels actually, but I'm in a transition phase in terms of student teacher. So I consider myself as an eternal student, but because we are talking about Mercury, as you know, I have a strong Jupiter too, and I have many planets in Sagittarius. And at the moment, I explore more and more my teacher side too, so that I for the first time in my life, stepping into the role as an astrology teacher too. So I just started there and I'm learning to teach at the moment, but that's something that is shifting too. Yeah.
Yeah. How's that experience been for you? Shifting into teaching?
It's exciting. And I think the best teacher should always know that he or she is a student too. So I think I started my first bigger astrology program at spring equinox, but it's in German language. As you know, Jonathan, English is my third language. So there is, a little bit, I'm sometimes a little bit afraid of speaking English. So this podcast interview is a little bit challenging for me too, but I know that I actually have to do that. I know that I have to do that, and that I have to expand, and not letting my fear holding me back. But it's kind of very fun and exciting to be more in the teacher role and to explore which kind of teacher I want to be. And I'm hoping, or I'm already knowing and seeing that there are some portals opening for me to expand into teaching in English language too, but this will all unfold in divine timing, and I know that it will happen, but how and when we will see. And I think that as I said, that it is so important that we always consider ourselves to be students.
Yeah, I really feel that too. I'm grateful that you named the fear, especially when we speak multiple languages, to really kind of, it's almost to me like being reborn, right? In like a different, because with language, it's like you use your mind in a different way with different languages, right? Your mind works in a different way, and it's almost like you are seeing a new side of yourself. You are experiencing and sharing a new side of yourself, and there can be some trepidation because there's a little bit of chaos there, and also at the same time, like, I feel you to be such a brilliant communicator in English. I mean, I've never heard you speak in German with me understanding, because I don't understand German. But yeah, you're just such a brilliant communicator, and I feel like your ideas are very refreshing. So I'm excited for your new exploration into sharing more in English and seeing what that brings forward. Yeah,
Jonathan, thank you for that reflection. And the thing is, I guess where the fear comes from, one thing that I wanted to mention first, when you said that speaking, and I mean, these are already Mercurial topics, so I think it's worthy to talk about that.
Absolutely.
That when we speak another language, that's like being reborn. And for me, it was a double rebirth, because when I started to learn astrology, I started to learn it in English, because everything I heard about astrology in German was, I hope I don't want to be hurting any German astrologer, but actually I must admit that I did not found what I was searching for within the German astrology. I mean, there is no German astrology scene, to be honest. And so I was led to evolutionary astrology, and I learned astrology from the beginning in English language. So I learned two new languages. And so I actually don't know many words, many astrological terms. I don't know the German words for that, right? Because I started to study with English speaking teachers. And Yeah, I think why I'm always a little bit afraid of speaking in English when it is not a safe space, like a live classroom within a program, as we have been together in Meteorite or something like that. It's always that, because language and my Mercury is so strong. In German, I have this when I speak German, I have the feeling that I know every little nuance and every little shade and meaning of every word. So I can really dance and play with words and be super, there is an intention between every word, and I can play with the rhythm of sentences and so on. And I have a very high expectation how I want to express myself. And in English, I have to surrender and I have to trust. And that is something that my guides told me, that you already have told me. I have to trust that the energy and the meaning between the words is coming through, and that I'm opening up and trust that what wants to come through will come through. And that it's not about, and I asked my Akashic Records guides today what is important for me in the conversation with you. And they told me that I should not be worried about saying the right thing or using the right vocabulary, but that this conversation is meant to make the listeners curious about Mercury and to ask actually questions, and to step into the magic of Mercury, and that it is not about using correct vocabularies. So
I love that. I love that. I'm like, yes to that. Very resonant. Can you share a little bit more about how you got to this point in your life right now? And if you would like to share, your sun, moon, rising, or if you want to share any tidbits that feel resonant from your chart, I would love to receive that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. My sun, moon, rising is, I have Gemini rising. I use the Porphyry house system.
Yes.
So I think when we go with whole sign, it's a little bit different. But with whole sign, I don't feel myself. So I go with Porphyry. So I have with Porphyry, and with whole sign actually too, I have a 12th house sun in Taurus.
Mm-hmm.
And rising is Gemini, and I have my moon in Sagittarius, and my Sagittarius moon is in exact opposition to my Mercury in Gemini, by 1 degree difference. So my Mercury is in 1 degree Gemini, and my moon is in 2 degree Sagittarius, and I have Mercury in Gemini. And because we are talking about Mercury, I think it's maybe interesting to say that I have not only Mercury in Gemini, but also Vesta at 0 degree Gemini. And I have Mars in Gemini on my ascendant in the 12th house. And I have Chiron in Gemini. And then I have, in opposition to that, and all in the 12th house. And in opposition to that, I have my moon and some other planets in Sagittarius opposing the Gemini squad. So yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of Gemini Sagittarius.
Yeah.
Themes. Yeah.
Totally. And what brought me to astrology, I try to make it short. I was always asking myself and others, even as a child, why I'm here in this body, on this planet. I can remember that I must have been maybe 5 or 6 or 7. And I was aware of that there is something that I can observe myself. So I had this awareness of where is Verena? Who is Verena? And why she's here? And I was asking my mom why I'm here. And yeah, she could not really answer this question. But so I think I was always very curious. What is interesting is that my secondary progressed sun moved into Gemini when I was 7.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No, when I was 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my sun in Taurus is at 22 degrees. So, and I think I'm really seeing that in my life, because at that time I started to write and to be super curious, and I have written stories, and my teacher loved me. And I think there was always this curiosity and interest in philosophical questions, but I was not really into astrology so far. And then I studied philosophy and history of arts. And after that, I became, I was a writer, an author. For a short time, I was trying to work within TV production companies. So there was always media writing. And in 2014, I started my being self-employed. And I had at that time, I started my own blog, podcast, and I was an author for different magazines in Germany, but it was in a completely different sphere. It was nothing that had to do with spirituality or something like that. And then I had a really, I burned out totally. So I had I had not really a physical breakdown. It was more a spiritual breakdown at the end of 2018. And I questioned the meaning of what I was doing. And so then began my journey. I really was very interested in yoga and spirituality. And I quit my old business. And because I was so gifted by parents that could support me financially at that time, I'm so deeply grateful for that, because that gave me the space to explore spirituality. And then astrology came to me. And it was very interesting because I thought I will become a yoga teacher. And I did a yoga teacher training. And at my yoga center, there was a workshop about Vedic astrology. And I thought, interesting, Mercury. And I joined this workshop. And I knew that I found something. And my curiosity led me to learn about astrology. And I found out about different forms of astrology. And I started my self-studying. And then my curiosity led me to evolutionary astrology. And then, as you know, I started to study with Sabrina Monarch. She's our teacher. And I started to study with Ari Moshe Wolf and other teachers as too. But yeah.
Yeah. I love hearing that story, especially the part about how you thought you were going to be a yoga teacher and then you were led to a different path. That felt very 12th house and very Gemini to me. It's almost like you were like, it was like a cosmic joke, right? That you were put in this yoga teacher training to find astrology in some ways. I love that. I want to hear a little bit more about evolutionary astrology and your relationship to evolutionary astrology. I'm curious if you could name in words and thoughts why it is that you find yourself so drawn to this particular lineage.
I actually don't know how I could find it, because in German, evolutionary, so in German, there are not these branches. You don't have such, this is Hellenistic astrology and this is evolutionary astrology and so on. And I actually don't, I just know one astrologer who's naming himself as evolutionary astrologer. So evolutionary astrology is nothing that is common in Germany. But as I said, I started to look within English speaking astrology scenes for interesting teachings. And I think it was the EA Zoom meeting channel on YouTube that brought me to evolutionary astrology. And then I watched talks by Sabrina Monarch on this EA Zoom YouTube channel, and I watched talks by Ari Moshe Wolf, and I felt very, very drawn to them. And then I got deeper and deeper into evolutionary astrology. I bought the Pluto Volume 1 by Jeffrey Wolf Green, and I self-studied at this time with all these amazing videos that are for free at the EA Zoom meeting YouTube channel. Please, everybody check it out. It is amazing. And the teachings by Deva Green, the daughter of Jeffrey Wolf Green, and so on. I watched all the videos, I read the books. And I think what was really, or why I would say at the moment, and I feel that it is maybe something that is not only at the moment, but really important for me in this life, is that evolutionary astrology, we are always asking the why. Why does the soul have this signature? Why is the soul experiencing this or that? And we see that everything in the chart, and because of that, in the life and in the experience of the soul, has actually a reason, because there's always something to experience, to learn, and to evolve. And I was really never satisfied by classic Western astrology or even by Hellenistic astrology, because it's, for me, sometimes, and everything is perfect. I don't want to say, I don't want to judge. It's
Absolutely.
just my personal view. I really respect every branch of astrology, and I'm a big fan to listen to other astrologers that come from completely different perspectives. So talking about Mercury, diversity, and I respect all different branches, and there are some different astrology schools that I feel drawn to too, and I know that I will maybe learn more about that, like archetypal astrology, for example. But evolutionary astrology, it's always asking for the why, seeing the evolution of the soul. And I deeply believe that we are here for many lifetimes, not only on this planet, that the soul reincarnates here on planet Earth, in other spheres too, and that there is this continuation of evolution that we explore and that we pick up in this life, unresolved topics from past lives. And I experience this by myself, so that feels super real. And I think evolutionary astrology is a wonderful key and tool to come into this deep wisdom. And I consider evolutionary astrology really as a wisdom school, as a school of wisdom.
Right.
And so this is, it's deeply touching me on all levels.
It's beautiful. Yeah, and I can really see that, as someone who studies with you and who kind of watches you interact with the material of evolutionary astrology, I can see how much it lights something up in you, which is why I ask the questions, because I feel that for you specifically, like it really seems to, there's a deep resonance, on a soul level between you and this wisdom tradition. So I want to talk about Mercury with you, but I would love you to read. There was a poem that you wrote, a prayer that you wrote about. I think it was about Mercury retrograde, right? Or was it about Mercury in general? I would love for you to read that as, kind of a way for us to transition into our discussion about Mercury.
Yeah, and Jonathan, I have sent it to you, and I have. I need a second to find it.
I can find it for you, actually. Okay. So this is the poem, the prayer that you wrote on Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, and I have written it last year in June when Mercury was retrograde in Gemini. So I had multiple Mercury returns, and it was in a square to Neptune. So I think that is important to mention. Okay, I will read it. Mercury retrograde as a prayer. Can you sense instead of speak? Can you feel instead of ask? Can you listen instead of questioning? Can you embrace the rhythm of words instead of searching for their meaning? What is meaning? What are opinions? What are facts? Words can become symphonies when you allow them to flow. Sentences can synchronize with your soul when you allow them to grow naturally from your heart, your soul source. Words can heal when they lose their functionality and become grammarless, timeless, limitless. The truth can drop if you empty yourself. Become a vessel for words that are more than you think. Ideas can emerge when you embrace the unknown and trust that the truth is there, beyond your words, beyond your thoughts, beyond your mind. Words are magic, symbols for the more that our mind cannot grasp. Syllables become melodies that arise from our soul. Language is wider than a way to speak. Language becomes nature. When you hear the song beyond the noise, when you see the painting beyond the color, when you hear the wisdom that whispers and shows you your way home. Mercury guides you when you let him play. Mercury teaches you when you stop to know. Mercury transfers you into other spheres where your mind can merge with the frequency of your heart. Mercury leads you when you allow yourself to be. Mercury connects you with your most inner truth, the harmony of the heavens that you can just feel. Mercury brings you back to yourself, soul, your source, when you listen. Listen to the love that always be there. When you stop to search and allow yourself to see clearly and just be in the beauty of what is, now, endless, here. Your life, a prayer. Mercury, your ally. Your path is already here and clear. When you close your eyes and feel and speak what wants to be spoken by you, through you, now. Your life, a prayer. When you embrace the unknown and just be.
That's beautiful. I was really moved by this part where you said Mercury transfers you into other spheres where your mind can merge with the frequency of your heart. That's beautiful. And I feel like because I'm just so drawn to that particular line, I kind of want to start there. I want to start with this idea that Mercury is not just about the mind, but it's a portal. Mercury as a pathway into something else, into a deeper facet and experience of reality. I wonder if I just kind of open that door, what comes up for you?
Yeah, open the door. It's all about this door opening, or maybe gatekeeping too. So I think that, yeah, we so often talk about Mercury as our left brain and our logical mind. And that's true. That's totally true. But I think we both know, you have Mercury in Pisces, I have Mercury in the 12th house, that there's so much more that Mercury can explore and lead us to. And I think that, I mean, Mercury was the psychopomp. He could shift from the heavens into the underworld. And I really see Mercury as a portal, or as a guide, or as a gatekeeper, as a door opener. And I think when we look at the astronomy, because I mean, Mercury is a personal planet. He's really close to Earth. He is very connected to Earth and therefore our body. So he's really, we can see him in our body. He's our brain and our breath. And on the other hand, I have the feeling that he is so mutable, and he's so flexible, and he is the messenger. And I think that he really helps and works together with the outer planets.
Yeah.
So Uranus, the intelligence of the pure intelligence of the cosmos, the soul's isness.
Mm-hmm.
Then Neptune, the oneness, this what we cannot speak about actually. And Mercury, with Mercury, we can bring it into words. And with Pluto, our soul, our subconsciousness. So Mercury can go with Mercury, we can discover these spheres and these realms, and our mind can go wherever we want to go, actually. And this can be very supportive and really expansive. And we can go with our Mercury in the Akashic records, and we can, when we open our crown chakra and we let Mercury fly and connect with Uranus and Neptune, we can really become a vessel for love, for downloads, for information, for wisdom. But we can also go the downward spiral with Mercury and be trapped in our worries, in our limiting beliefs, in our fears.
Mm-hmm.
So Mercury is really, for me, so he is kind of a shapeshifter. So he can take on whatever form he wants, or whatever form you give him. And when I say, I must apologize, when I say he or him, I never mean the biological gender. So Mercury is genderless for me. So please be aware that when I say he or him, I don't mean the biological gender. So even because of that, he's kind of, what is the right word? I think androgynous. Yeah,
Yes.
androgynous.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so he can open the doors to the heaven and to the underworld.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. And I'm feeling like really pulled to this connection that you're making between Mercury and the outer planets. So I definitely want to explore that a little bit more. Something that you were kind of drawing out, a thread that you pulled that I feel spoke to me, was this idea of the vastness of the mind, and how there's so many different ways to use our mental faculty. And it's almost like it's about intention, right? It's about calibrating our intention. It is about calibrating to a sense of resonance with our soul level truth, and kind of maybe tuning in to that key, right? That musical key, so that the rest of the notes can make music according to that key and in relation to that key. You had also spoken or shared with me a little bit about Mercury's evolutionary intent. I'm curious to hear what is coming up for you around that.
one of my teachers, Ari Moshe Wolf, is a musician too. And in one of his songs, I actually don't know the title of the song, and I'm a little bit paraphrasing here, but Ari has this line in one of his songs, and I suppose it is inspired by A Course of Miracles, because I just started to read A Course of Miracles, and there is this idea, and the line is, your mind is a holy altar, no matter what you think. And I just love that, because that puts that together, what you just said. It's so much about the intentions.
Yeah.
And there's this vastness, and Mercury can become anything and anyone. And it's all about the mastery of our mind.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, maybe we can talk about the mastery a little bit later, but the evolutionary intent that I connect with Mercury is maybe very important to name now, more in the beginning of our conversation, because I think that I see Mercury as the evolution. He leads the evolution of our mind. So our curiosity makes us humans that we want to learn. And when we learn, we grow and we evolve, therefore. So I really see Mercury as this energy inside of everybody. And when we look at children, we see that. I mean, they evolve because they are curious. They want to learn. They ask. They want to explore the world. And before we experience, we ask.
Right.
Before we step out into the world with our Jupiter function, by the way, with wisdom, because we experience things, that is Jupiter. But before that, we have to be curious, because when we are not curious, we will not step out of the door. So Mercury is really that, this first sparkle of curiosity that brings us into the world, and that brings us to exploring wisdom and meaning with Jupiter, and all getting in connection with Venus and all the other things. But first of all, we have to be curious. And with Mercury, we have this open mind and this curiosity, and therefore we evolve. He brings our evolution, into movement. And I think that there is something I thought about Mercury in relation to Pluto. Because in evolutionary astrology, you know that, Jonathan, Pluto stands for our soul's desires. So Pluto is the bottom line, the baseline, why our soul incarnates again and again, because of our desires, because our soul wants to experience something. And therefore, we are constantly evolving and incarnating. And I think that when we connect that now with Mercury, the things that we are curious about can give us a hint to our soul's desires.
Okay, I love this. This is also extremely Akashic conversation. Yeah, I totally feel you. I think it's so interesting how sometimes we can be tricked into thinking that we don't know our soul's purpose, when all we have to do is connect to that curiosity, right? I believe it was Stephen Kotler that said that, if you don't know what your soul's purpose is, or what your life's purpose is, just list down all the things that you're curious about, and then see if there's any connection between them. And there you have it. That's your soul's purpose. And I think that's really beautiful. And there's something too about connecting Mercury and Pluto that feels really fascinating to me, because they seem like such different archetypes. To me, when I think about Mercury, I think more of this effervescent, maybe a sprint runner type of situation. Like the archetype I see in my head is Mercury with the winged shoes, right? But when I think of Pluto, I think of this underworld creature, and I think of this very slow moving thing, like thinking about the soul's evolution, moving from one iteration to the next through different lifetimes makes me think of how the movement of that is so slow. So I'm curious to hear you draw out more about this connection, right, between Mercury and Pluto. What do you see as the connection? What do you see as the relationship and sort of the connective tissue between the two archetypes and how they work in our charts?
I totally see it as you, that they are very different. But I think that our soul's purpose is constantly evolving too. So I think this idea that we have one purpose in this life, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
Because it's in evolutionary astrology, we learn that one desire leads to the next.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because of these desires, so we have a desire and we exhaust our desires until there's only one desire left over, and that is the desire to reunite with Source. So, but I think that is not the goal. I think the way is the goal, because when we evolve, we gain more and we make more and more experiences, and therefore we gain more and more wisdom and compassion, and therefore love, and can be more and more these beings that act from a place of compassion and love, because we have made all of these experiences, because we have followed all these different desires. And therefore, I think our path is always a path of becoming and having a desire. And the key is that we don't follow our desires on an unconscious level, and don't just exhaust every desire that arises within us, because I think it's all about becoming conscious what our soul wants. And then we can ask the big why question. And then when we see if this desire is based on fear and maybe unresolved karma and trauma, and this desire needs healing, or if this desire lets us expand and evolve, and then we can act on that. But it's all about, in evolutionary astrology, not repressing our desires, because desires, and therefore Pluto, is our soul's evolution. They are our soul's evolution.
Yeah.
And it's all about becoming consciously aware of them, so that we really act in a conscious way. And I think that there is something with Mercury and Pluto. We say, and I would like to add Mars, because in evolutionary astrology, we know that Mars is the lower octave of Pluto. So Pluto are our subconscious soul's desires, what our soul wants to experience and evolve in this lifetime and in other lifetimes, in the past and in the future. So we see this whole axis, this karmic axis. And Mars is the driving force of Pluto. So Mars is our conscious will, our conscious willpower. So we have this deep desire, deep in our root, Pluto, and therefore there's something that we want. And then we go for that with Mars.
Mm-hmm.
And I think where Mercury is kicking in is that it is not only, I think it is not enough to, why do we want something? So we have to be curious about something. You know, there is not only, I think that we actually want something, that means we want to find out more about that. So there is an element of curiosity and this need to learn. Everybody, every soul wants to evolve, and evolution is a natural state of, I mean, everything in nature is all the time evolving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean the whole cosmos is evolving and expanding. So it is a given thing that we are constantly evolving, and our soul is evolving. As humans, our Mercury is actually, I would see him as a helper for Pluto or as a companion. So Pluto is this deep vibration and this underworld god, but he's so much more. I mean, he is our soul in evolutionary astrology, and I deeply resonate that. So he is something that is there over lifetimes. So, and Mercury is like this function as a human. I think he's playing with Pluto, and he's maybe getting messages from him, and then our soul gives Mercury messages, and Mercury gets curious about something. I mean, Mercury is about the nervous system too, so we have this like a impulse, and then we are heading towards something. And I mean, I was curious about astrology, and something brought me to astrology. Now I know the deeper reasons for that, but it was my curiosity.
Yes, and also it brings to the conversation this truth, right? That even though maybe our soul's desires and purpose have always been there, that the process of getting to know them is a step-by-step unfolding. That it's not revealed to you all at once. The images that are coming to my mind are the Hermit card in the Rider-Waite-Smith, right? Of this sage figure walking in the dark, carrying one lantern, and basically only able to see within the parameter of the light of that lantern, right? And then also another image that comes to me as you were speaking is Hansel and Gretel, this idea of leaving breadcrumbs, right? And it's almost like, yes, Mercury becomes that we use our curiosity to get deeper and to understand our soul's desires and our soul's purpose. Yeah, which is so beautiful.
Yeah. And what came up, I love these images, Jonathan, and what came up for me is, on the one hand, Mercury can have, especially Mercury in the 8th house or Mercury in Scorpio, can have this penetrating character. So really wants to dig deep to the bottom of the soul. But on the other hand, what came up for me, and saying something like, on the other hand, is very Mercurial, I recognize, because Mercury rules the hands. So
Right.
on the other hand, I think that Mercury, when we don't work with our Pluto, our soul's desires, on a conscious level, Mercury can become a very, very disruptive and destructive force when he is driven by repressed desires. Then he becomes very destructive too. So when we have unconscious desires that are destructive, because they Jeffrey Wolf Green says everything what we repress becomes distorted. And when we have these distorted desires, then actually our Mercury becomes very, he can lead us into the dark. And he can hurt. With our Mercury function, we can be trapped in our fears. And I have this tarot card, where the woman is sitting in the bed, worrying. I think it's the 9 of Swords. And this is this being trapped within your own fears, or hurting anybody else with words, or having really, really destructive thoughts and ideas, and feeling drawn by very dark and negative things and topics. So there is a dependency between Pluto and Mercury, I guess.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to add, maybe with Mercury and Pluto, is to that they. I would ask the question to the listener and to you and to myself: who has more power? Mercury, is Mercury playing with Pluto, or is Pluto directing Mercury? I think
That's a
it's a
great
good question. I actually
Yes.
don't know the answer, but yeah, maybe that's interesting.
What about with Neptune? How do you see Mercury connecting with Neptune?
Mercury and Neptune. In the natural zodiac, we have squares between Gemini and Pisces, and Neptune as a modern ruler of Pisces. When we see, I know that you study traditional astrology as well, but when we take Neptune as ruler of Pisces, then there is a natural square between Pisces and Gemini, and Pisces and Virgo.
Right.
So it seems to be complicated, but actually having Mercury in the 12th house, I think they really like each other. I think that Mercury really, when he connects with Neptune, he becomes really the magician. And he becomes this open vessel for source energy. And I see the tarot card, the magician, this person who has one arm to the heavens and the other arm and the table in front of him with all his skills. But he knows that everything, every skill, every resource he or she has comes from source. So when Neptune and Mercury connect, then we can, in a good way, then we can have this deep knowledge that our mind is a vessel for love, and that when we open up our mind to the more and to the one and to source and to the cosmos and to creator energy, we can actually become the hand of God. So Mercury as the hand of God, goddess, source, whatever you like, and say what wants to be said and share what wants to be shared and create, because our words and our ideas, first is the idea, then is the word, then we create it. So we can, through our Mercury function, bring something that is bigger than us into the world and into the physical world.
I love that. This idea of words being the intermediary between the world that we can see and the world that we can receive inspiration from is beautiful. It brings me to, I think it was the Gospel of John that starts with in the beginning is the word, like kind of that idea, right, of inspiration, of thought that is not yet formed, of creating delineation where there is no separation. Mercury and Neptune makes me think of channeling and channelers in general, like people like Esther Hicks or people like Bashar, just kind of almost like connecting to this other perspective. Or even, you can say Akashic Records too, right? Like people who practice Akashic Records do conscious channeling and do connect to this other realm in order to access a perspective that is not always available when we are only seeing from the positionality of our small human self.
Listening to our heart feels very Mercurial, Neptunian too, because I think our heart is as the third eye, the portal to source energy. And so this deep listening, I know that listening is a Venus function too, but I see it with Mercury as well. And I think that Mercury with Neptune is really expansive. So then he completely flies out of the left brain. So with Neptune, when Neptune calls, Mercury says, okay, left brain is not enough for me. I must go to the heaven now. And so he can bring, so he can really fly. I think that there is, again, so much intention needed, because I think that we always talk, when we talk about Neptune and the Pisces archetype and the 12th house, about oneness and source, energy and love with capital letters, and truth with capital letters. But there is delusion, there is living in a fantasy world, there is really, really huge disillusionment with Neptune.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a danger that we often not see with Neptune, because becoming one means that you lose your identity. And that is so scary.
Mm-hmm.
And that you see that the world, how you thought it is not real. And I mean this, having a 12th house sun, it's story of my life, and not only of this life. So this moment of your whole life was a lie. And this is really, really scary, and it's really disruptive. But it's always that you see more clearly, and that you come to a bigger truth, and a more truth, and more truth, and more truth. And therefore, it's always this lifting the wheel, so that you finally find out what is the real paradise. And I think with Neptune and Mercury, there can be this, through your thoughts and through your ideas, create a completely illusionary world. And you know that there is something that is kind of dangerous there too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think, again, this kind of goes back to that idea of discernment, and also in accessing, being aware of different ways our minds can think, and almost maybe creating one's own personal map, of this is when this kind of voice, like, for example, right? I'm just going to give a personal example. For me, there was one time when one of my teachers during a reading asked me, do you think that's coming from your truth, or is that coming from your ego? And I was like, whoa, and it's interesting, because to me, it's not about punishing ourselves when we are coming from a place of ego, but it is about creating A, awareness, and B, constant questioning, right? Of like, where is this thought coming from? Like, who is speaking here? Because I think too, what we learn about the Mercury archetype is that, and you probably can resonate with this too, Verena, being a Mercury child, right? That there are many different sides living within us. And these different sides speak in different tones, and the same words can have totally different meaning because they come from different perspectives. They come from different ontologies, right? So, like the practice of being aware of, is this idea coming from this part of me or that other part of me, and kind of developing relationship with all the different parts of us. Yeah.
I love that, Jonathan, because what came up for me is that when we talk about this confusion or this mind fog, Mercury is actually the solution for that too. Because what you said, asking, is this real?
Mm-hmm.
So Mercury can create illusionary worlds, but he can lead us out of them, into the a more clear and pure version of Neptune, too, because of asking and spiritual discernment, with what we have with Virgo so strongly. So this discernment, what is becoming clear, and really deciding what thought is coming what thought is serving me and what thoughts are not serving me. And I think with Mercury and Neptune, and I like what you shared about these different parts of ourselves and really asking the different parts of ourselves. I think there is one thing too with Mercury and Neptune, that we can believe the words of others that are not true.
Yeah.
Or we can, or maybe we want to hear something that the other is actually not saying.
Not even saying.
Yeah.
Right.
So, because, and here comes Pluto again. Pluto, because what we desire directs how we perceive the world. So, and then we hear with Mercury or read or learn just that maybe comes from a distorted Pluto and have the mind fog with Neptune. I think there is something about maybe, really Mercury and Neptune can be magical, really magical and so powerful, but they always have to, Mercury has always to be intentional and very clear and very pure. And we need to clear our mind so that we always ask, is that real? And with real, I mean the real where the answer is the truth with a capital T, not our Saturnian reality, how we see the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to transition to Mercury and Uranus. What are your thoughts about that?
I think, Mercury is the lower octave of Uranus. And what I actually learned learned from Ari Moshe Wolf, he described it so well that Uranus is really the pure intelligence of creation. And with Uranus, we are the objective, we just observe. So we observe what is here in the now. It's just objective awareness without any prejudice, without any judgment. We just see what is here. We are just here as a soul in this moment, and it's really the soul's isness. So, and there is no shock and no past and no future when we just look at Uranus. Uranus is what is. Nothing else. The shock comes when we lived in a very unnatural way with many conditionings, and then when we let go of these conditionings, we are actually shocked of how we are.
Yes.
And
yes.
The whole freedom and liberation part is just there when we connect Uranus with Saturn, because Uranus, just Uranus, there is no liberation because it is just what is. So pure observation.
Right. And Uranus as our inherent wildness, right? Our inherent spontaneity. But spontaneity is so interesting too, because it is a concept that is used in contrast to this way of being stable that we often are in society, right? But it's actually a conditioned thing. It's not our natural way of being. It's like you would never call a river spontaneous, because the river is just rivering, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I would even say that the word wild is just wild because of our conditionings, because it's actually just natural, you know?
Yeah.
You know, we just see it as wild because in our society, everything has to be very well structured. And then the
very
river
tame.
is wild. Yeah, tamed. Yeah, so Uranus is just the objective observation of things. And Mercury comes and gives names. and labels the things. And that is really something that became clear for me when I listened to the teachings of Ari. So this our Mercury function gives names. So I can take an example. So with Uranus, I just see the world how it is, and I would not give the book in front of me the name book. So I would just see this object. And then Mercury comes in and say, okay, that's a book. Tick, here's Mercury. And Jupiter then brings the interpretation. Oh, why is this book lying there? Do my spirit guides want to tell me something about, and so on. So then comes the interpretation, which is Jupiter, which is searching for the higher meaning of things. And I would even say that it's just the foundation between Mercury and Uranus, so that Mercury gives the things names and the intelligence of the universe names. But with Mercury and Uranus, I think we have, again, they work together, because Uranus is this intelligence of the cosmos. And we can, together with Mercury, bring it into our conscious awareness and our mind. And we have too this difference that Uranus is our long-term memory. So the long-term memory of our soul, so the blueprint where we have what we experienced in our lifetimes, and we are not aware of that, but it is within our Uranus field. And something like the Akashic Records or something like that, I consider as very Uranian too, because it is this huge field of consciousness and of awareness. And with Mercury, we can tap into that.
Or at least a piece of it.
Yeah, a piece of that. And Mercury is our short-term memory. So I think that Mercury, the piece, you said it right. With Mercury, we can catch the phrase, or we can see the picture and have a grasp a little bit of it.
Something that comes to my mind as you were speaking, Verena, is this idea of divination, and about how, to me, divination is about recentering around the relevant question, right? And fashioning the question such that it's relevant to the person in that moment. And for example, if we are in a tarot reading, not just talking about all the different ways that Ten of Swords or the Temperance card can be, right? But really focusing in on how it's relevant for the person right now. And that's, I think, how Mercury, thinking of Uranus as this really vast field, right, of information, of vibrational library almost, like how we can kind of tap into just that piece that we need right now.
Yeah, I love that, Jonathan. I really love that. And what came up is, I think with Neptune and with Uranus, we can be so overwhelmed. And Mercury can help us. And here, spiritual discernment again. With Uranus, I think channeling is Uranian and Neptunian too. And with Neptune, it feels more like this connection to the frequency of love. And with Uranus, it feels a little bit more on an intellectual level. I don't know how you see it.
Yeah, I like that. I don't know, Verena. I would say maybe for me, the distinction is a little bit more about how, with channeling in a Neptunian way, we're allowing energy to come through, right? And we're allowing ourselves to feel that energy, or even if not to feel that energy, to feel the impact of the energy, right? Whereas with Uranus, maybe it's more the information itself, that's maybe how I would think about it, just kind of, on the spot at this moment. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I channel the Akashic records, I have the feeling that I'm actually really in Neptunian and in Uranian rooms.
Yeah, me too. I feel that way too. Yes.
It's both of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think both have this quality of being overwhelmed. I think Neptune it's more of an emotional overwhelm, and Uranus, it can be on a very so many ideas.
Yeah. Yes.
And, I mean, I have all these Gemini planets in the 12th house, and I have many planets. I have my North Node and Jupiter in the 11th house.
Yes.
And my Mars in Gemini is in exact opposition to my Uranus in Sagittarius. And I mean, it's no joke. I can be really haunted by ideas. I find no peace and rest because there is such an overwhelm.
Wealth. Yeah.
So, and because of that, for me, meditation is, without meditation, I would go nuts.
Yeah. Oh my God, Verena. You're talking about my life too. Yes.
Meditation and sport. So I have to exercise so that I can find clarity, and my system is not totally restlessness, but with both, I think both Uranus Mercury and Neptune Mercury can be very powerful, but you need always this. When Mercury is just running on his Gemini function, just pure curiosity and pure asking, we are burning out. He needs the Virgo function of digest the ideas, digest what we learned, discern what actually makes sense. Sagittarius. So Sagittarius and Virgo are very important for the Gemini Mercury, so that we discern what is from a bigger meaning, Sagittarius, for us to learn.
Yes.
Because when we don't do that, we are completely overwhelmed with Neptune, with Uranus, and with the urge of reading all the books.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's powerful. I can talk to you forever, Verena. You know this. First of all, I guess I'm just so grateful for all the wisdom that you shared and this time together that we had of channeling a little bit of Mercury and the outer planets. Do you have any last words about that?
Yeah, I think that 3 little pieces that came up seem to be important. With Mercury is, I think that with Mercury, I see this big shadow that we depend our security on our logic and our what we know and our knowledge. So having Chiron in Gemini, this is lived experience, so that we have this this fear that we cannot feel secure when we don't understand something, or when we are not understood by others, or that we are misunderstood by others.
Yeah.
So I think this deep fear within the Mercury archetype, that we can just be safe when we know it all and we can everything put into a label. And I think that is something that we really have to be aware of, and where Neptune can actually help.
Right.
So to surrender and to allow Mercury to leave the left brain and to connect with something higher, so that we can say, okay, I cannot know it all as with my left brain. So I don't have to. It's not that there's always more to learn, and there are always things that I will never understand as a human.
Yeah.
And I think another thing is that that piece of that Mercury, and I think that is something that we experienced so much when the North Node was in Gemini, and I think that it seems important to mention at the moment too, that Mercury can really help us to accept different opinions.
Yeah.
And different
having that
perspectives.
open-mindedness. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's a friendliness that comes with that. So when we are connected to our heart or our intuition and our Jupiter, actually, so when we feel what is true for us, and then we are open to hear, and we don't feel scared by other opinions.
Yeah.
So when we are kind of intentionally settled in what feels right for us, we can be open to others, and we can listen and communicate and maybe discuss and maybe sometimes argue too, and see other points of view. And that can bring us into evolution too. So because we can question our own without totally losing our sense of self, but yeah, we can evolve too by the opinions of others and the points of views of others. And I think that with Mercury, there is always the shadow side of being too adaptable to the truth and actually lying or don't saying the truth or don't speaking the truth, which can be a trauma reaction too, because we maybe learned that when we say our truth, we are in serious danger.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, there is something about Mercury that can make the world a little bit friendlier, and there can be more acceptance.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. Thank you, Verena.
Thank you, Jonathan.
You're brilliant, and I'm so grateful for this time together. I'm curious if you can share a little bit more about how folks can find you, how people can work with you. How do you want to be found? Yeah,
sure. I think at the moment, because I must say that my website is just in German and it's an old website. I actually want to recreate a new website when Mars turns retrograde in Gemini. I think it's a good idea to, in this time, maybe do some reworking where I will show my willpower Mars in the public.
Yes.
So when you are, dear listener, when you are English speaking, I would recommend you to maybe look at my Instagram channel at Verena Borell, because most of the time I write most of the time in German, but you can always hit the translation button on Instagram.
That's
under
right.
my postings. So this works pretty good. And sometimes I share in English too. And when you are interested in having an evolutionary astrology reading with me, I do that in both languages, in German language and in English language. And yet you can write me a private message on Instagram, or maybe, Jonathan, you can share my email address in the comments.
Absolutely.
So mail at verenaborell.com. And so you can reach out for me for evolutionary astrology readings. And
awesome.
That is the best way to connect.
Thank you, Verena. My last question for you is, if I offer up the phrase, healing the spirit, what comes up for you?
Yeah. When I tried to prepare for this question, I thought, okay, Jonathan, may I write a book about that? So I try to just, say what feels important.
Yes.
I think that I really love that your podcast has this name, because I know that you are a Virgo rising. and you are a Pisces sun, and it feels so much like Pisces Virgo, healing the spirit. I really love that. And I think that one thing that is important for me about that phrase is that we should never confuse healing with fixing.
Yeah.
So I think, and I know that you don't meant it like that. And I think that healing is, for me, is really remembering that on a soul level, we are already whole and pure love. And I think that healing the spirit, healing is a part of evolution. I think we have to experience every facet of life. That includes traumatic experiences too, and hurtful situations that are hurtful for humans, so for the human in us, so that our soul can gain more wisdom.
Yeah.
And so it's like a spiral. So because of the downward, the underground journeys that we have, we can expand and multidimensional evolve and grow in all direction and explore more and more facets of what is already there, the whole source, love.
Absolutely.
And I think healing is something about reconnecting with the soul that is already love and pure. And I think when we say spirit, because I ask myself, okay, what is actually spirit? And it comes from Latin, spiritus. Spiritus, and you know that, Jonathan, means breath. And I think that for that reason, it means something like life. And Richard Tarnas used in his book, Cosmos and Psyche, and I don't know where exactly, but he says something about the whole cosmos, the whole universe is breathing together. And so for me, it is this oneness, and the planets are just one way to see the evolutionary curriculum for all that is.
Yes.
And I think there is something with healing the spirit that when everybody, every soul, every individual reconnects with its soul and heals old wounds and really connects with this pureness of oneness, then the collective can become more and more, the consciousness of the collective can rise more and more, and we can become more and more connected to love and truth and this pure essence of life. And I think there is something about rhythm too. So connecting to this natural rhythm of spiritus, breath. So there's constant natural cycles. So healing the spirit for me is, returning to something that is a natural flow of life and of evolution, and letting go of this idea that everything has to be linear and all the way up, and that we have to be beings that are put in a box and act in a certain way and wear these tight corsets, and because we are so afraid of looking into our wounds and actually sitting with our fear, and so we have to put ourselves into these tight boxes. And I think healing the spirit is all about coming back to our soul and our natural breathing rhythm.
Wow, Verena, thank you for that. That blew me away. That's so beautiful. Thank you for this time together, and I can't wait to have you back.
Let's do that. I would love that. And I mean, whatever you want to talk about. I think my Mercury is very open for every idea.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Verena.
Thank you, Jonathan.
That's it for my conversation with Verena Borell. I hope that you found something resonant, something eye-opening from our conversation. I always find myself to be in a state of deep gratitude and awe of the generosity, the fluency, the inspiration that Verena always shares along with her transmissions. As always, you can find all the ways to connect with Verena, to book sessions with her, both in English and in German, and to sign up for her English newsletter. If you are a German speaker, you should also check out Verena's podcast, Mercury Dreams, which is incredible. If you found this podcast or this conversation to be inspiring, to be nourishing, helpful in some ways, I would love it if you could subscribe, rate, or review this podcast with 5 stars or whatever is the highest ranking on your podcast app. If you think that someone else will benefit from this episode, I would really love it if you could share with them too, whether that's on social media or individually with a friend. Until next time, I hope you take good care of yourself, and I'm sending you so much love. Thank you for listening.